Hey everyone, Anthony Furey and Andrew Lawton right here at the Manning Networking Conference 2019 in our nation's capital. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Been an interesting conference so far. You're speaking. You're going to be moderating, hosting a couple different discussions. So lots of public policy issues right front and center. But the big one, the big kind of issue that everyone's talking about, well, not just here, but at any Timmy's coast to coast, Lavscam. What happens next? Where we're at? I feel like we're at this kind of holding pattern, treading water period where it's like it could fizzle away, or like the RCMP could say we're charging multiple people from the PMO with obstruction of justice charges. Where, depending on how you look at it, are we at on this?
No, I think those are valid issues, and we have a few different ways that the story could get renewed, if you will, because there's always a natural lifespan, one of which is if Jody Wilson-Raybould or Jane Philpott says a bit more, that tends to buy an extra few days. Another big one is if the ethics commissioner makes a finding, although there's some weird stuff going on there with the ethics commissioner taking a leave, but the office saying the investigation's continuing.
But they can't write a report, that's the thing.
Yeah.
They can continue doing what he's delegated them to do,
yeah.
But any sort of fines or findings
yes.
or issuing statements, he's got to do it.
Yeah, and so I don't understand, I mean that's a separate issue, but I don't understand how we don't have contingencies there when the ethics commissioner is on a leave for whatever reason to continue with ethics investigations and completion of those.
Or appoint an interim.
Yeah, appoint an interim or have a deputy, whatever it is. So theoretically, if there was a report finding Justin Trudeau violated ethics rules, again, that could reinvigorate the story a bit. But no, I think it is a valid concern. And if you're the Conservatives and you're wanting to say, this guy's corrupt, we're not, you've got to keep people interested in this story. And we've seen time and time again where very significant stories fizzle away. And let's look at the Bahamas vacation. Does anyone remember when the Bahamas vacation was like the big Justin Trudeau scandal?
Right.
And I'd be surprised if that issue represents 1% of the vote in the election. So I think it's important. I don't think that the actual substance of whether the law, or at the very least the moral contract that politicians have, was broken, I don't think that should take a backseat to political partisanship. I think that political partisanship, if it is going to exist on this issue, which it does, it needs to be keeping in mind that this is a significant breach of trust concern that's been alleged here. But again, you have to keep people interested in that story.
Well, one of the things, and I hate this sort of conspiracy theory stuff, that's not the right term, but people sort of surmising, well, why isn't the RCMP doing much or saying much? And of course, they don't release press statements on ongoing investigations. But on that note, I was rereading a column that we ran in the Sun papers by Senator Colin Kenny. He's now retired from the Senate, a Liberal senator, and he was chairman of I guess the National Security Committee. And he wrote a column saying, when they were hiring a new RCMP commissioner, saying, watch out, one of the big ticket items is politicization of the RCMP, particularly when it comes to Ottawa bubble issues. And he brought up a number of issues, why they issue certain charges, why they don't. And this is someone who for decades has been following this file. And I thought it's very interesting that we had warnings like that from a while about the RCMP. And again, I have no sort of basis to say I think they are holding back on Lavscam. We just don't know right now, but there have been concerns. What do you think about that?
No, I think that's true. And one point that I would raise with this is that the RCMP has, generally speaking, had some institutional issues, just that any bureaucratic body would. And one significant one is access to information. I mean, they're abysmal when it comes to being transparent to the public, by extension to the media, the politicians, and all of that. I think that their general rule of not commenting on ongoing investigations is a good one. I do think they could probably, as a body, be a little bit more forthright about when they are investigating. Because that's the issue. If they won't even comment as to whether or not there is an investigation, we're not talking about a body that people can have trust in, even if it's worthy of that trust and deserving of it, because it's like Schrodinger's investigation. I mean, it's either they're in the midst of a corruption investigation, or they've dismissed it without cause, and never the twain shall meet. And I do think that there's an opportunity for policing to be more forthright about these things that doesn't compromise their need to protect the integrity of their investigations.
Right. No, it's a very good point. I mean, I feel like where we're at now with Lavscam, because there are so many detailed questions, there just needs to be a trial. There needs to be someone who is not Anne McClellan and who is not Justin Trudeau or Anthony Housefather committee chair to weigh in and just say to everybody, all right, these are the facts. something criminal happened, something criminal didn't happen. So we can't just have this festering. You know, I was on CBC a couple weeks ago, and the panel, there was an academic who had legal expertise, and there were 2 lawyers who were also on it, and everyone was talking about these legal details and so forth. And I thought, I feel like we're doing a trial here. Like I feel like we're doing a dress rehearsal for a criminal trial. You've had all these former prosecutors, former judges weigh in, and I go, it's like we've already convened a trial here, so just get on with the real thing. Because the Mike Duffy thing, I mean, there was a catharsis to it. He was charged, and then, you know, if he was guilty of them, he would have been found guilty. He was found innocent, he walked. So there you go, folks, it's all wrapped up. And I'm not calling for a show trial or a politically expedient trial, but that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and the Justice Committee could have been that. The Justice Committee could have been that if the Liberals weren't jerking at least for the transparency reason alone, maybe not for the finding. And, you know, Karl Rove, who is the former Bush campaign manager, he was the keynote speaker to open this conference on Friday. And he was talking about the Russia investigation in the U.S. And he had said something that I think actually applies to Canada that I really, really appreciated. He said about Donald Trump in the White House, if you're not guilty, if you're innocent, stop acting like it. So stop attacking Mueller, stop attacking the committee, stop obfuscating. And I think the same could be said about Justin Trudeau and Lavscam and everything with Jody Wilson-Raybould. If you're not guilty, stop acting like you are.
Right.
So if you're not guilty, let her speak. Because it may well be that this whole, because Scott Bryson left thing is the reason. And it may well be
You're
that,
incredibly generous, Andrew.
Jody Wilson, I'm saying may. Got to get all those Liberal fans out there. It may well be that Jody Wilson-Raybould and Trudeau genuinely had different recollections of the same events, whatever. But when Trudeau is blocking her from speaking, when the Justice Committee is blocking her from speaking again, when Jane Philpott is saying there's a lot more to the story, and the Liberals are still saying, no, there's not, they're acting guilty. And at this point, in my mind, I've naturally conjured up the worst case scenario, because why else would they be trying to block this? And I think a lot of other Canadians are doing the same.
But I think they have also conjured up the worst case scenario in their minds. And what I mean by that is, okay, Liberal Party, Jerry Butts, Ontario Liberal, originally from Dalton McGuinty's office. David Livingston, a former chief of staff to the Ontario Liberals. He was sentenced to, I think 4 months in jail for the gas plant's email deletion. So deleting emails, a pretty sort of white-collar bureaucratic thing. Here, we've got this obstruction of justice pressuring the AG. One thing that Jerry Butts said in his testimony, and I found him a less partisan and more credible person than Michael Wernick, actually, when he gave his testimony.
It was odd how that works out.
And Jerry Butts, he said, I was so busy with NAFTA, I wasn't even really thinking all that much on this file. And I kind of believe him, and I believe it's possible that they did do obstruction of justice in a kind of like doofusy way, in a sort of not malicious, but just like a negligent way. And after the fact, they're just like, darn. And then they've all lawyered up, and I think they realize, worst case scenario, maybe a judge would not find them guilty. Maybe they would not be found, but they realize there is enough for them to be criminal charges against them, and there is conceivably enough to be convicted. And these are people with, families and young kids at home. They don't want to do that. They don't want to have the David Livingston experience, and I get it.
Well, and to your point about the RCMP earlier, I think the Michael Wernick testimony was very revealing, because we saw, and the comment I've made in the past that I think is valid here is that the supposed most senior nonpartisan government official in Canada was running political interference for the Liberals. And when Wernick resigns, it's not a mea culpa. The statement that he gives is that, the Conservatives are to blame because the Conservatives are, reducing trust in Michael Wernick. And I think Michael Wernick is actually reducing trust in Michael Wernick. But when we have this most senior, supposedly nonpartisan government official taking on a very political role, how can Canadians trust the ethics commissioner's impartiality, the RCMP's impartiality, all of the Attorney General's impartiality? And all of these situations, it's not to say that there is an institutional corruption in these bodies, but when one thing is revealed to be phony, the entirety is. And when you see Michael Wernick having gone down this road, I understand how Canadians cannot have faith that Trudeau is saying they need to have.
Excellent point. Folks, what do you think about that? Do you have faith in the things Trudeau is saying in the system, that we're going to get answers from the RCMP or from any committee body? I'm Anthony Furey, here with Andrew Lawton at the Manning Networking Conference. Don't forget to share this video, comment, like, and more. Thanks for watching.